Well, yesterday really was a whirlwind. What was typical was that when a new president comes in, he typically issues executive orders undoing a lot of what the previous administration did. So those kinds of things are pretty standard. What struck me yesterday was this speed with which Donald Trump is willing to follow through on some campaign promises that didn't matter that much to most people. So, for example, he used both his inauguration address and the power of the pen to say that moving forward, the federal government only recognizes two genders. He moved forward saying that the federal government is going to require a hiring freeze for all open positions and that people working for the federal government have to return to work. These are not the reasons that people elected Donald Trump, but they're the quick things that he can do on day one.
Jennifer, can you talk to us about presidential pardons? It seems like the last days of the Biden administration and now the first day of the Trump administration, these presidents have just gone to extraordinary lengths in terms of the number of pardons and the severity and the types of pardons. Has this always been a part of the American presidency? What's happening?
It has not. There have always been examples of pardons being issued. Sometimes it's to political friends. Sometimes it's to people who were serving sentences that are no longer mainstream kinds of sentences because policy has evolved over time. What we've seen here from both the Biden and the Trump teams in terms of these pardons are really a response to Donald Trump. Over the course of the last 4 years, he's made it clear that he thinks he's been politically persecuted and that as a result, one of the first things he's going to do as president is seek retribution. And we saw him yesterday continue to talk about that. We saw him pardon most of the January 6th insurrectionists. The Biden pardons are related to all of this, too, though, because by pardoning members of his family and the January 6th committee, for example, what Biden was trying to do was inoculate those people from Trump's retribution. So it's unusual, but Biden and Trump's behavior is related to each other.
There was also some narratives that came out of the last 24 hours from analysts saying that it's hard to know which Trump we are going to see. Like, are we going to see the Trump that spoke amongst his peers right after he was inaugurated? That seemed a much more measured approach to policy and a much more politically savvy individual? Or do you see the one that was talking to his supporters later that night that seemed much more kind of out for blood and retribution? And we got executive orders and pardons relating to both. How does that evolve, you think, over the next coming weeks?
I think we're going to see both Donald Trumps. We know that he's happiest when he's talking to his supporters, when he's in campaign mode, and when he's generating and ginning up that kind of populist sentiment that got him elected. But he's also aware of the fact that in order to pass any of his legislative initiatives, he needs Congress on board. So I think he'll try to thread that needle. But when push comes to shove, we've now had 9 solid years of evidence that he ultimately prefers the campaign trail style.